Hey, thanks for tuning in. The story of our modern economy is really about this quiet but incredibly important shift, the move away from real money, which is an asset, to currency, which is actually a form of debt. It's a change that has a massive effect on your savings, your work, and your future, and honestly, understanding it is the first step to navigating what feels, to many, like a rigged game. So let's just ask it outright. Are you playing a rigged game? Think about a game of Monopoly. The rules are pretty clear, right? The banker never, ever loses. Well, our financial system has some features built right in that can feel an awful lot like that.
Okay, so the most crucial thing to get your head around is the difference between money and currency. They are not the same thing. Money, like gold or silver over here on the left, is a real asset. It's designed to hold its value over long periods of time. But currency, that's just a debt note. It's a government IOU that is literally designed to lose purchasing power over time. We call that inflation. And confusing these two is probably one of the most expensive mistakes a person can make.
So how in the world did we get here? Well, to figure that out, we've got to go back in time and look at how the rules of this game were first written. A key concept you need to know is something called an adhesion contract. Sounds technical, but it's simple. It's a take-it-or-leave-it deal where one side has all the power. The analysis suggests that back in the 1930s, during the New Deal era, the whole system shifted toward this model. Things like taxes started to feel less like contributions and more like what some sources called forced debt obligations.
And this quote, wow, it just nails the personal impact of all this. You spend your life, your finite time, working for a currency that is constantly, by design, becoming worth less. It's a losing formula that makes it incredibly tough to build real wealth just by saving.
This timeline really maps out the major rule changes. It all started back in 1933 with the New Deal, which set up the power dynamics we just talked about. Then, in 44, the dollar got pegged to gold and became the world's reserve currency. But the biggest shift, the real game changer, was in 1971, when that link to gold was completely severed. The dollar became pure fiat currency. And the rules just keep on changing, with things like the new T+1 settlement rules that are designed to protect the house, sometimes at the expense of everyone else playing. And this quote right here gets to the heart of how those rules work in practice. It's brutal. When there's a panic and a big fund gets a margin call, a computer algorithm takes over. It doesn't care about their brilliant investment thesis. It just starts selling off their best stuff, often gold and silver, to raise cash. It's a mechanical rule that can wipe you out just to protect the system itself. So you have this system with all these built-in instabilities, and now it's really starting to show some cracks. Let's take a look at how the rest of the world is reacting to the game.
Just try to wrap your head around this number, $38 trillion. That's the approximate U.S. national debt. So if you're another country and you're holding massive amounts of U.S. dollars in your reserves, you have to be asking some pretty serious questions about the long-term stability of that asset.
And this chart shows that countries aren't just asking questions, they're actually making moves. Back in 2000, the dollar made up about 72% of global reserves. Today, it's down around 57%. Now that's not a collapse, but it's a very clear, very steady trend toward diversification. And the BRICS nations are really leading the charge on this. They're actively building their own payment systems, and get this, they're even testing a new digital currency that's backed by gold. The whole point is to become less dependent on the US dollar for trade. So, if the old system is showing stress and new alternatives are popping up, what does a transition actually look like? Well, it starts with getting a regulatory green light, one that starts building a bridge to a whole new system. Now, this might look like a boring piece of government paper, but let me tell you, this is a massive deal. The SEC and the CFTC, two of the biggest financial regulators in the U.S., have agreed to work together on crypto. This is a huge signal that the government is moving away from just suing people and is getting ready to treat digital assets as a permanent fixture of our financial infrastructure. And legislation is starting to create the actual language for this new world. The proposed Clarity Act defines a whole new asset class called a digital commodity. By putting assets like these under the CFTC's jurisdiction, it creates a clear legal pathway for them to exist and interact with the traditional financial world. All right, so with the regulatory framework finally starting to take shape, we can now look under the hood at the new financial plumbing being built. It's a system that actually integrates law, computer code, and physical metal. And look, this isn't just some vague theory. It's a defined architecture with 3 core pillars. You can think of them as specialized layers. AirSci for legal notarization, CCG for making sure everything is compliant, and AFINET for the final settlement of assets. This table really breaks down how each pillar has a super specific job. It's all about separating duties to build security and trust. The first layer creates the legal record. The second one double-checks that the deal follows all the rules. And the third one handles the secure custody of the actual asset. Every single step creates a verifiable receipt, building an unbreakable chain of trust.
So how do you actually turn a physical thing, like a bar of gold, into a secure digital asset? Well, it happens in this three-step pipeline. First, Affinet authenticates that the physical asset exists under commercial law. Then, CCAG translates all that data into a compliant format. And finally, RSI executes the whole thing, creating a permanent smart contract that can't be changed.
And this new plumbing allows for a really powerful shift. We move from a reactive, simulator system to a preventive one. Instead of breaking a rule and then getting in trouble, this system treats legal compliance just like computer code. If a transaction tries to violate a rule, the system just stops it dead in its tracks. It's like getting a syntax error. The transaction simply won't run. And all of this, the law, the code, the regulations, it all leads to the ultimate goal, a real sound money solution, one that gives you actual truth on a balance sheet and allows for a final, undisputed settlement.
Now this pyramid, this is the most critical part of the whole solution. The entire digital system is built on a foundation of physical precious metals. And why is that so important? Because unlike a stock, a bond, or a dollar bill, a physical asset that you hold has zero counterparty risk. No one can print more of it, and no one can default on it. It is the ultimate Tier 1 asset.
And this is where you see the real-world power of this system. Because it's anchored in real assets, it completely changes how you can settle debt. Instead of paying $1 of debt with a depreciating dollar of currency, you can use a tiny amount of a real physical asset to discharge a much larger amount of fiat debt. It's a way to basically multiply the power of your assets and escape that losing formula we talked about at the beginning. So when you put it all together, what you really have is a personal, sovereign treasury operating system. It gives you the tools to accumulate real, Tier 1 assets that have no counterparty risk, use modern law to collateralize them, compound their value inside a compliant ecosystem, and finally, step outside that monopoly game where the banker always wins.
Which brings us to our final thought. For what might be the first time, the legal frameworks, the technology, and the physical assets are all being integrated to create a brand new financial architecture. The tools to build a fair, transparent system are here. The only question left is, what happens next?